Klaus first asked me to do that, I had not really made up my mind on the merits as to whether or not an elected versus an appointed Hillview Commission was in the best interest of the town, and whether there were some good reasons for or against it. Since that time, I have, in fact, drawn some conclusions. But one of the first questions I had when I was asked to take a position on this, and one of the first questions I had when the petitioners first came to us with this petition for an elected Hillview Commission, was whether or not, or what the procedure would be in order to accomplish this. And I had some concerns over that. One of the things that I did was solicit an opinion from town council as to what would be done, what needed to be done procedurally in order to accomplish an elected Hillview Commission. Town council did their homework and spoke with some various groups, including the Attorney General's office. I think the State Elections Commission was also contacted, and the Secretary of State's office. And town council in this case, based not only on the discussions he had with those various agencies, but also based on his own expertise and opinion, concluded that in order to accomplish this, in order to have an elected rather than appointed Hillview Commission, that it would be necessary to effectuate a charter change. Now, a charter change is a lot more complicated than just going to town meeting and asking them if they want to change the original article that empowered the Hillview, the 1988 town meeting vote. A charter change would require going to town meeting with a proposed charter change, and then subsequently after that going to the ballot in order to accomplish to have an election to determine whether or not there should be a charter change. And I think that town council was pretty strong in their opinion regarding this. Subsequently, we did hear from some of the petitioners. In particular, we heard from Mr. Senior and Mr. Billows, both attorneys, and both, one of them a member currently of the Hillview Commission, and one of them formerly a member. And they seemed to think that there were sufficient provisions in our charter, provisions that I would call possibly loopholes, that would empower them to be able to effectuate this change without going through a charter change vote. I disagree with that. I think for us to try to circumvent the charter, I think for us to perform legal gymnastics with the charter in order to get the necessary result that they want is not the way we should go. I think it sets a very, very poor precedent for us to loosely construe or construct the charter in that way. So the very first reason I'm opposed to this is that it requires some more thought. It requires some more investigation, and quite frankly, I think, based on the opinion of town council and my own opinion from reviewing this matter, it's going to require a charter change and not just a vote of town meeting. Furthermore, I would suspect, and I wasn't part of this and I wasn't involved, but I would suspect that back in 1987 and 1988, when we had the study committee for the Hillview Commission, and in 1988 when we had the January of '88 the vote regarding the Hillview Commission, the very persons who are making this petition now for a special town meeting were the ones that put together these articles. And at that time, they felt it was in the best interest of everyone to have an appointed commission, not an elected commission. And I sincerely believe that one of the reasons they wanted an appointed commission back in '88 was they understood at that time that in order to have an elected commission, they would have to have a charter change. And they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to avoid the time and the effort that it would take to effectuate a charter change, and therefore they recommended an appointed Hillview Commission. And again, if you read our charter, it's very clear that the only 3 elected boards that are contemplated by that charter are the Board of Selectmen, the School Committee, and the Community Planning Commission. All others are contemplated to be appointed. And again, if there are ways around that, I don't think that's what was the intent of the people at the time the charter was adopted. I would also suggest that to this point in time, I have not seen any of the reasons why the proponents of this particular petition want to change the system from one of appointed to elected Hillview commissioners. Certainly the article doesn't contain any reasons for this, nor have I heard any real substantial reasons as to why they would want to make this change. And I think that to a certain extent, the expediency by which they've gone about this, requesting a special town meeting at an expense of approximately $4,000 to the town of North Reading, is not justifiable at this time. I don't think that they've made a good case for it. Apparently they intend to do that sometime at the special town meeting on the 22nd. I think there are other good reasons, based on the merits of this argument, as to why there should not be an elected Hillview Commission. The Hillview Commissioners that were appointed in January of 1988, and who until recently pretty much made up the entire Hillview Commission from January of 88 to January of 93, have argued consistently that there needs to be some type of continuity on this commission, that you cannot have all new people at one time. If you do, that you're going to jeopardize the work that the commission has done up to this point in time. And they've also argued that the commission has worked successfully during the last 5 years. I would wonder then why they would want to change at this point in time from an appointed to an elected commission. I think that the appointments that we recently made, Mr. Bob Masseri was appointed, I believe, last April to the Hillview Commission, and most recently Stephen O'Leary and Larry Diamond were excellent appointments. Bob Masseri's been serving the town of North Reading for some 20 years in voluntary positions, including the school committee and the finance committee. Stephen O'Leary, likewise, has been serving the town of North Reading for 18 or 20 years as town moderator, as a member of the Board of Selectmen. And Larry Diamond has just completed and just finished up his term on the school building committee, and I think that everyone would agree that the school building committee did an excellent job here in town in renovating the high school. They're three very qualified, very dedicated, very, very capable individuals who have joined the existing 3 members of that Hillview Commission, and I want to assure the people in North Reading that there is no crisis with the Hillview Commission, that the Hillview is alive and well and working effectively and efficiently, and that there is no emergency situation here that requires this kind of haste. The Commission has done very well over the last 5 years with appointed membership, and I think that they can continue to do very well with the members that we've appointed to this Commission. I also want to make it clear that none of the people that were previously on that Commission have been removed by us. Each of them served out their complete terms. In the case of Michael Walsh, he served in excess of 4 years. When his term expired, Mr. Masseri was appointed. In the case of Mr. Hashey and Mr. Purnell, again, they served 5 years on this Hillview Commission, and when their terms expired, we appointed Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Diamond. So none of them were removed. The original Hillview article contemplated a 3-year term for these commissioners, and I think they did that for a reason, so that at the end of each 3 years, there would be an opportunity for the sitting Board of Selectmen to make new appointments, and in this case, the majority of the Board of Selectmen chose to do that. And I'd also add at this time that the process was one wherein I, as the chairman and as the liaison to the Hillview Commission, worked very, very diligently, sat in on a number of interviews. We had 9 candidates apply for these positions. None of these candidates were solicited by myself or any other member of the Board of Selectmen. They applied of their own free will. All 9 of these people were interviewed both by myself and by the Hillview Commission. All 9 of these people were very, very qualified, and in my opinion, any one of the 9 would have been very, very capable of serving on the Hillview. But after the interviews were conducted, and after speaking to everybody involved, including Mr. Hashey and Mr. Purnell, I concluded that I was going to make a recommendation. And my recommendation was based on, 1, the capabilities of the applicants, and 2, what I felt was the ability of the Board of Selectmen to work with and communicate with the Hillview Commission and these particular appointees. And after taking all that into consideration, my recommendations were for Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Diamond, and I have absolutely no regrets. I think that they have contributed already to the Hillview Commission. I think that in the short time that they've been there, the lines of communication have been opened up between the Board of Selectmen and the Hillview Commission, and between the town administration and the Hillview Commission. And I think that to remove them now would be a mistake. I think that there are sufficient safeguards to protect the Commission from being rated or changed too dramatically by any Board of Selectmen. The fact that their terms expire every 3 years, that there are 7 of them, that these terms expire on rotating years, provides adequate protection to the members that are sitting there, and that they can only be removed for cause, so that they can only be changed, or the appointments can only be changed at the end of their term. One of the major concerns I have, in addition to this being a violation of the Charter, is that many people in this town who are willing to volunteer their time and their service would not be willing to run for an election. I think that of the candidates that we had for these particular openings, I would think that the majority of them would not subject themselves to running for election in this town. I don't think that they would want to go through the personal or financial expense of doing so. And I think by having an elected commission, you eliminate a lot of the qualified candidates that might be interested in serving. And I think that would be a shame to do that. I also think that if in fact this article passes, to take a position as the petitioners have done and as Mr. Senior has done, that if it passes, that if no one challenges it, that we can go ahead and have our election in May. If it passes at town meeting, and if I determine through town council and the opinion of town council that it is a violation of the charter and it's illegal, I would have to give some very, very serious thought to recommending that the Board of Selectmen challenge this as an unlawful act. I don't think the theory that because no one challenges it, it makes it right is the proper way to go in this case. I think it sets a terrible, terrible precedent for our charter. I think it sets a precedent where every person who is not reappointed or appointed for any of the other boards that we have in town, whether it be the Board of Appeals or the Conservation Commission, can run into a meeting, call a special town meeting, and turn around and change their particular board or commission from one that's appointed to one that's elected. So I don't think that we can just take an attitude of, well, if nobody challenges it, it's okay to do it. I think we have to really scrutinize this thing very, very carefully. I'd like people, rather than to come to town meeting on February 22nd with their minds made up, to come in there as objective as they can, to listen to arguments on both sides. I think I'd like them to listen to the opinion of town council, and after having done that, make up their minds. I really do think there is an issue here. I'm still not sure why the petitioners have even suggested that we need a special town meeting or that we need to change from an appointed to an elected Hillview Commission. I suspect it's because the persons, the individuals who they wanted to see appointed were not in fact appointed. And again, I want to assure people that there was a process, that process resulted in some very capable people being appointed, and it had nothing to do with the qualifications of the people that were there. It simply was time to open up the lines of communication, lines of cooperation between the two boards, and we felt that we could accomplish that by appointing the people that we did. I'd say that it was probably a far more extensive and comprehensive process than took place back in 1988 when the original Hillview Commission was appointed. Back then, if you go back and check the minutes of the January 1988 Board of Selectmen's meeting, you'll find that within 48 hours after the time that these articles passed the special town meeting, there was a selectmen's meeting. And at that selectmen's meeting, there was a motion to appoint the Hillview Commission. And at that time, the entire 7-member commission was in fact appointed, and they were appointed by a 3-to-1 vote. Now, Mr. Senior's made argument that an appointment by the Board of Selectmen doesn't necessarily mean that they need 5 votes, they only need 3, and therefore 3 members can control who's going to be appointed. Well, that's true of every vote the Board of Selectmen takes. And it was true of the vote that he was appointed under back in January of 1988. Mr. Senior at that time, along with the other 6 original Hillview commissioners, were appointed by a 3-to-1 vote. 1 member was obviously against, and there was 1 member absent at that time. I'd also suggest that at that time there were other applicants for those positions. And if you look at those minutes carefully, you're going to see that at that time a decision was made by the Board of Selectmen not to interview any of those applicants, to just go ahead and make the appointments. And I don't think the process then was as thorough as it was in these appointments that were made this past January. So for all those reasons, I am opposed to an elected Hillview Commission. I think it does violate the charter at this point in time. I think it requires a charter change. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it's nothing more than a situation where some people in town did not get their own way, and they are in fact going forward with nothing more to gain than these particular individuals getting their seats back. And I think that we have to deal with something that's far more important than these individuals, and that's the overall welfare of the town of North Reading. Thank you.